one, and a bing, and we're live. Yes, it is the Martin Fowler Scrum. It is a Tuesday. We have Raphael and Pat and Sam in the house, and also Matt just joining us. So what is going on? Yesterday, I was just jumping around on different things, like on about 5 different projects. I just wrote a blog about all the different things. I think I was helping people get unblocked left, right, and center. Unless they'll tell me, in therapy in a few years that I was just blocking them. We'll see. But that all seemed to go reasonably well. This morning, I've just been working on admin. I guess there's Craft Academy thing going on this afternoon that they want me to attend to. So I'm not even sure what my big focus. Really, my big focus. I sort of think it should be reaching out to sponsors. We had a meeting with Dree yesterday. We were looking at the performance of Heroku versus Dree. And we're sort of looking at that together. I need to provide them with some more details of the kind of profiles of the user activity on sites like local support or website one, so that they can adapt their adapt their performance to meet our needs. Hopefully they can do that. Lara sounds like she's having trouble getting into the Hangout. Anyway, that's pretty much my update. Let's go on to Pat, who was next in, and I'll see if I can help Lara.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I read your blog post. Sounds like you did have a bit of a helter-skelter day. For myself, after yesterday's Scrum, I did a peer program with Laura, cleared up final issues on her pull request, and she got that in there for MetPlus. It's downloaded in a resume. I worked on a story on MetPlus, continuing to work on that this morning. The ability to match a specific resume to a specific job and tell how closely that job seeker's resume matches that job. And lastly, I did a review of SHF project PR, and I entered a couple comments in there. And I think that was it from me for yesterday.
All right. Good stuff. So no blocks for you then, Pat?
Nope, no blocks.
Excellent. Let's go on to great report. Let's go on to Raphael. How are things with you, Raph?
Good, thanks. Yesterday, Aresh and I worked together on close vote feature. Yes, on async voter we're talking, which is basically we just send the size of the vote, of the final vote, back to story. We intentionally did that quite very lean and possibly too lean on the testing side. But one of the reasons we did that is we wanted feedback on how much testing is enough for the story. So I guess I'm going to pair with Aresh or somebody else again today, if possible. Go from there, see what's on next.
Great stuff. Excellent. Well, maybe at the end of the thing, we can have a little coordination, Raph, on async voter, and maybe we'll get that new thing into production and so on. Good show. Let's go on to Matt. Hey, Matt, how are things going with you?
Hi. Yeah, going pretty good. Yesterday, Sasha and I paired both on Redeemify and DDA.
Was that Michael rather than Sasha, perhaps?
Michael. Yeah, Michael. You're right.
Because I was paired with Sasha, so.
And so that got me interested to learn Clojure, but looks very interesting. On Redeemify, I'm right in the middle of doing authentication stuff, and it's getting pretty hairy. I got a lot of code, and it's going to be in one PR once it works. I'm having a little trouble with Cucumber debugging it, so maybe if somebody is available today, I've got the time at 7 o'clock my time.
That's 25 minutes from now, is it?
Yes.
I would love to be helping you with that. Thomas is asking me to get my lunch in earlier, and let's see. Certainly direct those things my way. The key thing I was going to ask you was about where we've got to with the Travis issue.
But the Travis issue's fixed. The only reason the build is failing is because the UI changes broke a bunch of Cucumber.
Okay. All right. Yes. Well, maybe definitely send me. I will definitely put if I can't join you in the Hangout, I will definitely put my eyes on that Cucumber stuff for you today.
Okay. Yeah, actually, somebody's working on that. Either what's SICF is.
Yeah, Francis. Is it Francis?
Yeah, I think it's Francis.
Cool. Good stuff.
So
all right.
That's about it.
Yeah. So we'll see if we can get you some support. Thanks for the report, Matt. Much appreciated. Lara, how are things going with you?
Hey Sam, yeah, good. So yesterday I got my second pull request merged in. Very excited about that. It only took 34 days.
That's it. You know, you start somewhere, you go down, it goes down. It gradually, you know, the pull request foo. You will get the PR foo, and then soon you'll be like.
So that was a big learning curve. Thank you, Patrick. And then I've started on another job on MedPlus, which is to set up the Jasmine testing environment to test the local time zones.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that set up. I've just got to set the testing part up now. And then on local support, I'm still blocked as per yesterday's issue of what I need to do.
Yes.
I understand what I've got to do. I just don't know how to do it.
Sure. Yes. Yes, and then, I mean, it's an interesting. You've got an interesting thing there on local support, which is sort of a refactoring thing, and there's certain refactoring steps that used in combination can. But yes, it's probably something that we should. So, well, anyway, I guess yesterday you ended up not having so much time. Potentially later on today, we could connect up.
Great.
Or yeah, we'll see. You let me know. I mean, I need to do a big review of the local support generally, and maybe I can just give you some more resources that will help you. So, anyway, sounds like you've got plenty to do in MetPlus and other things in the meantime. So,
no problem. Thank you.
not a problem. Okay, well, I think that's our Scrum. Unless anybody else has got any else's hair is on fire or other body extremities are on fire. There's water on the extremity. That's obviously a good way to go. I guess thinking people preparing. Pat, might you be free to sort of help Matt with the cucumber things at the top of the hour there, or what have you got planned now?
Yeah, I think I'll join Matt. I don't know much about Redeemify yet, but I can start learning by listening in and watching. Maybe help a little bit on cucumber. I was also wondering, Laura, are you okay with? Sorry, Laura, are you okay with your Jasmine? Jasmine is all set up. All you have to do is start writing Jasmine tests at this point. From MetPlus.
So I'm just busy writing the test. I've just been doing some research.
Okay.
And then, if I get stuck, I'll let you know.
And we have plenty of Jasmine test examples, of course. You've probably seen those.
I did see those, yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right, I'll connect up with Matt. Matt, if that's okay, that's your hangout.
Yes.
We'll continue on.
Thank you.
All right, great stuff. Well, maybe if other people don't mind, perhaps Raphael and I will just use this to coordinate on async voter. Feel free to hang around. I think we'll also discuss project management. I guess what I'll just leap in there with is actually, so Raphael was talking about having a team meeting for async voter, and it's something we've tried on different projects to have. Some projects do still have team meetings. The ability to do so is a big function of when people are available, and not to say we shouldn't try and have team meetings for things. I think in some ways, if you can get everybody in the same office or even just in the same hangout and get talking, that's a great way to resolve certain sort of issues. I guess the difference of Agile Ventures is trying to have support structures that allow us to manage even when it's difficult to synchronize, and partly the asynchronous voting on stories is supposed to help with that. And there is in my mind a whole plan for, and particularly after the last 3 years of different distributed projects, a whole plan for how we make progress, even if we don't have those synchronous. And I guess I don't know. Maybe I need to do a talk on it, or I need to write a blog post on it, or sort of get it more out. Yeah, should we just start on that? Raphael, you had some concerns about coordinating the project.
Yeah, coordinating the project and how much testing is enough testing at the moment. I've also got a couple of other ideas regarding project coordination, but that just has a lot to do with me pairing.
Sure. Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, one of the things, I mean, then there's multiple items here, and I might just grab the screen share on there and just bring up randomly a different discipline. Also, Ashley on the SHF project has been writing some documentation and sort of diagrams. I mean, there's one is finding pair partners, which is a challenge there. The other question there from Ralph was how much testing, I guess, and there's also project coordination. What Ashley's done actually some nice flow diagrams about the process of working. And I guess if there's ever the question, it's like, people have what do I do next? And so I would just sort of imagine there's almost a sort of a step plan, which is here is like the first thing would be, is there a estimated ticket in the ready column or equivalent? And if the answer to that is yes, so yes, then it's like, if interested in, I guess the problem that I am interested in working on, because you're not required to. It's and if yes, then start work on it, pairing or not. I think the thing is, it's great to find pair partners. We probably shouldn't, if we always held off finding a pair partner, maybe we would never get anything done. And there's a separate issue there about how, we find pair partners. We have these scrums, that's part of it. Some people don't make it into the scrums. We sort of chat with them in channels. Could we provide a better support framework? Probably. But so I guess we then have the thing is, if there's kind of there isn't an estimated ticket in the ready column, then it's we need to find a ticket from the backlog that I'm interested in and start a vote on it. And that could be a vote. It could be in a scrum, and it could be or asynchronous. And I think the idea is to try and make that not matter. And so once it's then estimated, that brings us back to kind of, this is like 1A, or my numbering scheme here is really, I wanted like a graphical interface to draw a flowchart in it. But it's sort of, and almost this is the kind of, ongoing cycle of work. So it's, if ever unsure what to do, go and get a ticket from the backlog. And then during this process, which is kind of 2, throughout process, rather than adding new features, elements to the existing tickets, freely make new tickets to go onto the backlog, kind of thing. And there's sort of like an engine there of getting stuff done where we're always working on the simplest slice of something, like that we want to be getting these tickets down to be, a simple, tiny feature that ideally can be implemented in the, very, very minimal lines of code. Sometimes it's not possible. I mean, like Matt's got that situation there where sometimes you're pulling in devise and it's doing all this authentication and all these things are guidelines rather than absolutes. But so by anytime you think, oh yeah, there's this other sad part or this other issue or this other, and we've got to deal with that, spin that out onto the backlog, and then that can become the subject of a vote in a scrum or an asynchronous vote. And are people getting the sense of this loop that I'm saying here? And was this already completely obvious, or is this helpful, having thrown up this part of my brain?
It's somewhat helpful. It's still it's one of those things that's always good to have repeated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'll try and get this more and maybe get a diagram for it and so on. I mean, this is just at the very high level. Of course, it doesn't address some of the challenges, which are, finding pair partners or just getting support when you're stuck on something, or indeed how much testing. And there's a certain extent to which, all of these things are, on a project by project basis. And it's sort of through the process of voting. And I guess the other thing, sorry, that I've missed out in here is, if you don't want to immediately start a vote or work on a ticket, if there are any, I guess almost this should be like step 0, like even before in some ways. So if you can, I guess it's almost like if you can avoid immediately starting a vote or work on a ticket, if there are any open PRs, then review them, and if possible, give feedback. Because there's this sort of thing of, one can imagine that looping through this process here, you kind of stay in your little silos for your own tickets. And it may be that we're thinking, oh, I just want to get as many pull requests in, I want to get as many commits in, and that's the way. I think that the real understanding for the project, the real value from the team collaborating together is, to the extent possible, if they can fit it in their minds, is that everybody's looking at everybody else's PRs. It's not always 100% possible, and sometimes you won't see a PR, and you'll just results of someone else's PR that's been merged. But this mechanism of reviewing the PRs is helping the kind of overall projects form its norms about this is the kind of testing that we want, and it's the discussion. They obviously don't want to spend years in a PR discussion preventing a PR from being merged, and that's why it's so important that the PRs themselves are small. But almost it's, I mean, what I would be saying if I was running a full-time team and I was paying everybody, I'd be saying, like, in the morning, before you even start work, spend the first hour just reviewing what everybody else has done so that you know how that impacts what you're about to do, if that makes any sense. Of course, we're all volunteers and no one's under pressure to do things. This project coordination level element is up for discussion as much as anything else. But this is what I've sort of emerged or come to over the last few years. I will stop talking. I have this dangerous thing that I just talk indefinitely if people don't tell me to shut up. I will stop there. I wonder shall we just have a look at some code on the async voter project? Should we discuss anything else about this? Raphael, or indeed anybody else who's got any comments or thoughts on this?
Still curious about how much testing, but I'm also curious to look at what you're about to look at.
Yeah, well, and I think I think we can maybe address the how much testing thing in that. So if we go and look at, I don't want to look at that. I want to look at this. Yes. So I was just going to, there was that question about how much testing, which I think came up from the pull request that Joao, or JP, as I should now be calling him, just got merged. And this is the first scenario for closing voting, which we were just going through. So we've got a lovely, we had the async vote yesterday in which we kind of coordinated like that we wanted to change the story slightly. So the story got updated. Fantastic. We've got a nice simple scenario. So we're someone closing with a 2. There is a story. I should send the story of size 2. It should come back, and that should looks great. I mean, there's one. Say again.
Again, we're having some issues around line 2 there as an admin.
Yeah.
Which is again these features kind of creeping into the language but aren't expressed by the code yet.
Yes. I mean, I think now, and for me that's not a big worry. Like, I kind of personally I'm happy for it to sort of mention admins, particularly because we're developing an API here, and like there's always room to introduce authorization and so on and so forth later on. That there's it's never going to be the case that we can't add that. And I think
Node.
Say again. Especially
Node, where it allows you to do that so easily.
Yeah, and so the kind of, for me, like there's an extent to which the users, I mean, there's this thing with computers, this idea that we have like different types of people who have different roles and they should have different permissions, and there's a sense here or there's often a sense that, oh right, if we're thinking about these admins versus devs versus end users or whatever, that we need to represent those in the system so that those can be enforced. But there's a level at which people can always give out their passwords to each other. There's no real like ultimate security, and there's an extent to which I would say that, like, at this level, we're just building this REST API. We want to make sure that it all just works independent of the authentication, and that we can bring that authentication in later. I mean, maybe if it is the case that using these terms is confusing, then that's dangerous. Yeah. I mean, in terms of level of testing, I mean, one could be doing a series of scenarios here in which one said closing with a 3, with a 1, with a what have you. It would make, for me, I think the argument would be like, well, that goes in a unit test rather than the high level scenario does the end to end, and it doesn't have to exhaustively test all of the corner conditions.
We're also questioning if we should add a scenario there where, for example, the size isn't specified, where we intentionally give.
You do the sad path.
Sorry?
You do this what we call the sad path. The happy path, sad path, is that a term you're?
I am now.
There we go. Yes, this is well. Armando uses this a lot in the course that many people have come through. I know actually Ashley wasn't familiar with it, and but yeah. So there's an idea that this is a happy path because there's no error states. And yes, I mean, you could easily have a sad path there that said that we throw the appropriate kind of error that we expect. I personally, almost at this level, when I'm kind of like just trying to get the bare bones of it, I wouldn't worry too heavily about that, because it's almost like it's once we get the bare bones that we kind of see the direction of the different thing, and we can kind of, I mean, Michael, I think was tongue-in-cheek saying yesterday about this kind of what's the word, bug-driven development. But there's I'm almost, to keep things simple, like, and small, is to just do this without worrying about the error condition and so on, and having got the tracer bullet, and then we can start to think about how are people actually going to be using this, and what are the errors that they are likely to encounter. At the same time, I think it's personal choice there. An extra scenario that, like was said, there was the sad path, it was closing and failed to have a thing, and it could go in, and I think I wouldn't say to the PR, oh, it must be one way or the other. I think that's kind of personal choice for the developer. I personally would probably lean to, at least at this stage, kind of the slimmer one. When it comes to a bigger project which has got a large thing in production and lots of people are using it, I would lean probably back again more to the, this is going to go out into a live production system and people are going to start hitting it and they're going to encounter problems. So maybe we should have a few more sad paths in there. But at the moment, we don't even really have a production system. So it's kind of getting to that, initial tracer bullet sort of prototype skeleton that is the thing that tells us, is the project going to have legs going forward? Is it going to get to the point where it has large numbers of people using it? So, and then, so was there a question about whether there should be unit tests? Was that?
There was a question regarding, have we tested enough?
Yeah.
Should we be putting in more cucumber tests? What I've been doing is, okay, let's write the cucumber test first. Let's start.
Yep. Outside in. Yep. Very good.
We go red. And then for each step, to make each step turn green, we then put down into the code. And
yes.
If we don't get as far as the model layer, then we don't really write any additional tests at the moment.
Sure. Yes. And then so we've got close voting in there. Yeah, and so this is the level of, so like some people like to have the controller tests that will hit all of the elements of this, that could be checking that this close voting thing in the controller would hit this find one and update. And I'm not a big fan of those, because I feel like the controller needs to have minimal logic and it needs to be able to evolve, and we want to be pushing the logic into the model. I mean, I guess what we've got here is we're doing this find one and update. That's an existing method.
It's provided functionality.
Yeah, by Mongoose, right? So we're just sort of connecting that up. And so I think for me, like this to me is where I think we can probably avoid a series of unit tests, really, because it's the Mongoose functionality is already set up. This code path is being exercised by the cucumber test. I think, as I say, you could happily add an additional scenario to check what happens when it fails. But I wouldn't force that. The thing that was more in my mind when I was looking at this was the way in which we're using a custom sort of name on the controller, and I think that's fine for now. One of the things that when we do with Rails is we have these specific names for the controller methods tend to be show, index, new, edit, updates. They have these like sort of specific pattern, which we're free to follow or not. I mean, I think
so. This should have been like set size on story or something like that.
Well, I think. But I think it's an interesting point about the point of the project that we're in. So I think at this point, right, we just want to expose that functionality to allow the size to be set rather than other things to be updated. I think this is, it's a perfectly reasonable thing. As we move forward and we kind of want to polish the core to be more generic and support more things, then ultimately this could just be an update method, right? And it would just say update, and it would have params coming in, and it would be in principle possible to edit any aspect of the story, and then we would have authorizations and so on connecting to roles. Like does this person have this permission to change the size of the story and so on and so forth? And I think that's sort of the holy grail. You know what I mean? Of like having the, you know, you've got your REST API and all of everything is in principle possible on the resources that your system describes. And then you have kind of like a roles and permissions framework, and you can then build an app of arbitrary complexity and adjust it just as you want it. But at this stage, of course, we don't need that level of genericism. So I think this is perfectly, this should be perfect, because so now, having pulled this in, what I'm tempted to do is pull this out locally and run it and actually deploy it immediately and sit and, you know, have it, you know, have fun with it. So I wonder if I've got the async voter here. No, it's over here. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, that's it there. So git pull there should bring me in the latest code. And I don't think there's any new, I can't even spell. Bring in the latest, there's some stuff, but it's all good. And so then we've got npm test, and we'll just do our existing tests. And I've got to reboot my computer again. And has it ended up?
This, I believe, is related to the Node
version. Yeah, now that's strange, because I thought I just added to the package.json a thing about engines that would have this automatically use, and I think it's working on the server. It's just not, okay. So I just need to, I think it's my NVM default is the problem there. I need to do that NVM just use stable for the moment, and then it will just work, I think. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, see, it's saying NVM, it said, when I did NVM list there, it said default, but for some reason it set me back to 4.2. I don't know why. Anyway, NVM tests. Let's see that all nice and green. Yes, npm run cucumber, and that should be all nice and green as well. And then git remote -v. So I have this. So I'm tempted to do here git push Heroku master, and I'll probably in parallel push it to git push. I put it to Dream Master. What do I actually want? Remote -v. Let's push that to Dream. That ends up being the home stage, and git push Dream Master. Less easy to find that badly named app. Okay, so that Heroku is now done, and I can now open that URL, and we can't get anything. We can go and have a look at the stories. And so this functionality that we now had is the ability to set the value on the story, isn't it? So if I take this and I go to my Postman, then in principle, I should be able to come in here. I should be able to, I mean, we've got, I know this is a put operation, isn't it? So we can now put, and I can say, let's say that we've decided that this is size equals 3. We'll also need to have a story ID. Oh, actually, what is it? It's story slash.
Story ID is given by the URL.
Story ID is going to go there. So we stick that in here, and then let's say that we change that to a 1, and then we send that, and there's been no response. Is that as intended?
No, we were actually intending for it to send the story back.
Right, and then maybe I've done something wrong. So let me just see that. So I'm going to reload the story. So the story ID that I was trying to hit there, we see that was the one ending 3A6. Oh, actually, which doesn't exist on the system. So that's a little sad part there.
We should have received an error. So that's maybe why it is a good idea to do that.
Yeah. Yes. I guess I'm just going to try and... So here, these are my stories. I assume it's... Let me get an idea of the story. That one currently is called Balloon. And let's do that in there. There it is. That's just a size. And this is what we'd expect the payload to be, yeah? The body we're putting...
should be a JSON. Should be a JSON object with size value as JSON.
Right. I mean, I think this will kind of do that for us. I mean, that seems slightly odd for I guess. Right. Is that what we're doing when we create a new story? Are we hitting it with a JSON object, or are we just sending those key value pairs?
Whenever, key value pairs, or whenever we're all, as far as I'm aware, we're always using JSON as the
Yeah, no, and yeah, it's here. It's worked now. It's worked now. So I think it's now set. We've set the size of balloon to be 1 there. Perfect. And so if I reload this, we should see, yes, that's updated. So in principle now, we can see the sequence. So if we want to create a new story, we start off with this. We say, let's have a story that's going to be, we should almost be able to leave the size out really for the initial story. So we're going to have a story where the name is equal to, super feature, let's call it.
Just regarding that, in all of our conversations, there's always like a name and a URL, size. When we're ever talking about a story, it's always name, URL, size.
Right.
Being like, I don't know if we really need the size. But if you look at the feature we've actually implemented, it only includes the name. So the URL, like one or the other. So I'm a little confused because everything else seems to assume 3 points of data, but we've only implemented for 1 point of data.
When you say we've only implemented for 1, if I come in here to the source and the, when with the story controller, if we create story, it's creating for these 3 things, right?
Correct, but if you look at the features.
Okay, the feature in, for example, start vote.
That's the one.
Okay, yes. So that looks like a, that's, I think we are expecting there to be a URL and a name. I mean, that's there, absolutely. We could create a ticket which says this. I mean, that also, we agreed not to use the word ballot. So there's a couple of issues there, right, that I think you correctly identified. So I think, like right now, or even I'll do it. This is the kind of thing that it's sort of, I think, hugely important to kind of like, issues with start vote feature. And we've got, those other things in there. So we can say here, this should be called start vote. It should test creation of story with name, and comments should be removed.
No, and URL should be supplied, and the size should not be specified.
Well, we've got the URL in there already, so
yeah, but it should be given us with the URL with the name.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I mean, it's like what I mean that is like in addition, it should test. Not that we should remove the URL,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I mean, feel free to like take that feature there and, adjust and modify as necessary. And, that's some kind of things is like sometimes, taking on the big tickets is like, you haven't got time for that or the mental energy. Like lots of these little ones, it's easy to get a nice feeling of accomplishment of like, yeah, we've got that sorted out, easy to merge in, we keep on moving on. But so the thing I'm excited to do here is, so if I now submit this story like this, so I'm going to create a new story, right, that's being created, and if I find the other window here now, no, I had it open and it's gone away. No. Lost the URL for the thing, which is, I'm just going to go from here, open URL. There we go. So that for stories. Like this. So we now have our super feature about which we might conceivably want to vote on. So in that case, if we take the ID for that feature now, so we've got the ID for that feature, so we can now imagine some number of people sending votes. And so that would involve us just saying like size equals 1 and doing a post there. It will say, okay, someone else voted 2, we could send it, and then a post one send. So that would be the thing, those votes would have come in. Now at the moment, I think we can't see if we try and do a get, this is, I think, another feature that's been worked on.
On the votes, we can.
Well, can we see, well, I think someone's working on it, I don't know if it's been merged in yet. I think we can't yet see the votes associated with the story. That's something else that we will need. But so now, finally, imagining the vote has taken place, we can now go through the process where, for that story, and I've the right one.
Put on stories to story ID, but I
can do a yep. Over here, it doesn't get the right ID for the story. So story there, I can now say, oh well, we did that vote, we discussed it, blah, 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 whatever. Now let's set that. So we've agreed it's a 2, and now we send that, and that's done. And we come back to here, and we reload, and so we can now see. Hopefully, super feature is size 2. So we've got, I think the key element there is just, for at least for this interface, to kind of give up the information about what the votes are so far, and then we've kind of got the core of the product. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I mean, it's a very interesting question about whether we start putting the logic in the server, or are we putting it in the what's it called? Putting it in a React UI, or do we put that in a Slack bot and we use the API as the backup thing? I mean, it almost feels like it's almost more flexible in the long run if we have logic about how many votes you need before you take it to a discussion to be in the actual app as the client, so to speak, rather than the server. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So how do we distinguish things? What do we leave as manual, and what do we keep as automated?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, indeed. And this is effectively what we're doing is we've defined the data model, and we're building the, we're exposing a RESTful API that allows us to sort of store the necessary elements persistently. And then, like you can imagine if we build the logic of like, it must be three votes, and we're not going to show you the votes until you get 3, then that limits the capacity of what the back-end app can do. And if then people say, well, hey, we want your system and we wanted to work it with 4 votes, before we go to that, we're like, oh, we're going to have to push out some new feature on the server. Whereas if we publish that, and this is the other thing I think actually, that we need to document this API and how it works in our README or in a separate document. I was just thinking there, like, so if we go to meeting voter here.
I was actually thinking about this overnight. I was thinking one of the things that we could do maybe on a weekly thing is do a diff over the routes files.
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah.
That would kind of almost provide us with at least an outline
of the changes that take place.
Of the changes of the routes, and therefore,
yeah.
How do I interact with the app? Well, let's take a look at what the routes are saying.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great. I mean, I think it was during Aresh who was responding to Adrian's questions about kind of what's going on. He posted a like a little summary of he like hit the app with a series of curls to sort of show what it could do. Yeah, I'm just going to grab that from his thing there. But yes, that's. I mean, and that's the interesting thing there is that depending upon how frequently that changes, one could be automating the posting of that diff to the Slack channel, or maybe the API will settle down. That's the thing. If the API can be somewhat generic, then it ends up being kind of a stable core that doesn't need to change, and it's then the changes in the clients that are of more interest,
yes,
so to speak.
I kind of quite like it being a very flexible API because different groups are going to implement planning poker differently.
Right.
We never say it has to be a 1, a 2, and a 3. It could be
right.
C, because we're just storing it as a string, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Yes, totally. I agree, and that was the interesting thing. When it comes to the way in which we were talking about it. See, it's very easy to get into, like, when you're sort of thinking about the app and the particular, like I had a particular vision for it, and you can start to say, oh yes, well we must make it like this, and there's all these other, you can start adding those constraints, and actually going off into the woods with those constraints can be sort of crippling for the app later on. Of course, we want to build the simplest thing first, but sometimes the simpler thing is just to leave the constraints off, and that gives you more flexibility in the long run. So it's all in the process. It's all about the journey. It's a lovely journey. There we go. So yes, I'm very pleased to have done that sort of round trip. We are now looking at come back. It's gone. We are looking at. We've got this. We've got a pull request here about set up code coverage with Mocha. Yeah, that's great. That's lovely. That is the wrong waffle board.
Istanbul now?
Istanbul, yes, I think that's the one that's commonly used. I was just looking here that we've got this one that Chaiwa has got in progress. Yeah, so this is kind of the critical one that we need. And I guess what I wonder is, does he have a branch? I'm not seeing any work in progress pull request there. So what we want to be looking for here is, if we go in the code, have we got a branch? What was the number of that thing there? It was 56 is the show vote story. So we would expect to have something with the, okay. So we've got a branch there, which has got some stuff. Yes. And yeah.
Completed. I think you completed that yesterday or the day before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll just ping him to say, you know, that's great. And let's see if we can get a pull request in. Yeah. Great work getting started on, do you think we might have a PR anytime soon? Let us know if you need help. All right, good stuff. Anything else that we should work out before? For me, it's lunch, but
well, we discussed how much testing's enough.
Yeah,
and we've decided to stay lean for at least in this project, to stay lean and then add as needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have you know, like for this next one coming in from Chaiwa, I would expect a sort of a similar level. You know, then particularly once we start to what's the word? As we start to actually support users with this system, and we get to, I mean, I've got the code here, but if we look at the story controller there, what did we have? We had a new yeah, like for, I mean, yeah, I mean, in Prince, it's interesting. Yeah, like as you know, like well, here, like in the first instance, you know, for a small amount of code, you know, the code paths can be easily exercised by the Cucumber scenario, and there can be, you know, a bit of logic in the controller. But as that logic increases, then I think we need to force the logic into models and services, and then they have to have separate unit tests. And
yeah, there's no real logic in that controller. We're only giving the options there saying upsert false. So if the story for some reason doesn't exist,
right,
not creating a story on the way.
Right.
And new is true just says give us back the new version from the database rather than the old version.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. Yes. At the moment, it's just sort of hooking up existing functionality. Yeah, I mean, if we're lucky, you know, we can really polish this down so that there is almost no, that there is an absolute minimum of functionality in the, you know, we've got this really thin RESTful API, and the clients can take care of the voting logic that they want. It seems, at least I'm enamored and attracted to that approach. At the moment, we will see if it will turn around. And
just before we move off this screen you've got on.
Yeah.
You'll notice that closed voting, I've got request results at next. That's the standard Node.js. There's over a 3 or 4 parameter. The other one would be error request results next.
Okay.
Or response, I should say, not results. Right. So I would just suggest that because Node always, whenever you're calling an anonymous function, there's always an error and results, or error and whatever there are usually first. So if you look at find by ID, for example, there's no error handling code there. It just assumes that the result is a valid object and send. I would suggest we go towards the model of, like we've got in line 39 there. Error, let's either handle it here or just push it down the chain.
Okay.
To be handled by the default handlers.
Sure. Well, that sounds good to me. And yeah, feel free to open tickets for that, for changes that you'd like to make them, and we'll get them async voted and you know, move on through. Yeah.
Sure.
Great stuff.
controllers there. Yeah.
Nice one. Nice one. Yes. Yes. And we'll have a talk. I mean, like, for example, like, all stories could become, that could be index if we wanted to standardize on, some set of but it could be all stories and all votes. I think as long as we have consistency, like, between, what we're doing, it'll be good. Right. Well, I'm going to go to lunch. Good to catch up with you there. I will also try and.
The time.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And well, good luck finding a pair partner as you need this afternoon. I mean, maybe you can jump in, we'll catch with Chaiwa and get him all finished up on that last component, and we'll have all of the elements we need to start actually, linking this up to clients that can do some good stuff for us.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. Bye for now. Take care. Cheers.
Bye.
I can't find the buttons.